Gents, I just want to pause the episode for a moment to let you know about the Strong Men of Value Academy. You will have heard me refer to it a number of times, and I want to bring more attention to it. So this isn't just a program, it's a life-changing environment and community of men who are focused on personal and professional growth. We're looking at areas of relationships, wealth, and health, things to help you thrive and maximize your life. Imagine having bi-monthly one-on-one coaching sessions with myself, weekly group coaching calls, and an incredible brotherhood of high achievers by your side. Now we're diving into resilience, leadership, and holistic growth to not just succeed in your career, but to thrive in your health and your relationships. Your journey to greatness, it starts here. So join the movement and you can apply for the Strong Men of Value Academy. You can head to themanthatcanproject.com to find out more. Guys, thank you so much for returning, or for the new people joining in and listening to the Man That Can Project's podcast for the first time. Thank you, and remember to hit that follow button so you can be notified of all of the new and latest episodes with our incredible guests and some epic solo sessions. Now, before we dive in, I want to share with you the inner circle. Now, recently there's been a decision. We will be capping the foundation membership. Now, the first 100 members within the inner circle will keep the foundational price, which is currently less than $3 a day. You can't even get a cup of coffee for that. Right? It's pretty incredible to have access to a platform which we've just transferred across to our own platform, where it's so user-friendly. The men can break all the categories down, and there's so many tools, videos, workshops, and resources available to help you take your life to that next level and engage in conversations that increase your awareness around what's possible and what other people are dealing with. It's such a fascinating place to be. And, you know, I love being a part of it and seeing these men grow. So remember, check that out. Head over to themanthatcanproject.com/inner circle. And finally, guys, remember, hit that share button now. And if you are sharing these podcasts on your Instagram and you're tagging at the Man That Can Project and at Lachlan Stuart, you will get an entry every month, okay, to win a free coaching session with myself. So the reason why I recommend tagging is that's so I can notify it, I can put it in, and at the end of the month, I'll draw it. So I look forward to connecting with all of you within the inner circle. And once again, you know, if you do get value from these podcasts or any of the content, I think the inner circle will really help you take it to that next level. And you know, what better way to invest in yourself than with a great group of like-minded men? Let's dive into today's episode with our incredible guest, Kevin.
You're listening to the Man That Can Project with Lachlan Stuart, a global movement created to empower men and open up what's really going through their minds by having real and raw conversations about life's unique challenges and our individual ways of processing it all. Welcome to the Man That Can Project.
Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Man That Can Project podcast. I'm your host, Lachlan Stuart, and today we have an incredible guest joining us from Scottsdale, Arizona. It's been a long time coming, and I'm very excited for the chat. So we've got Kevin on the line, or Kevin on the call, and you're the founder of Synchronicity, which, you know, is an international retreat. You're a leader in that space. Obviously, we'll probably dive in how you had to pivot during COVID with travel and retreats being put on halt for a bit. Consultant, entrepreneur, and you're a sought after business coach for health and wellness professionals. Now, your company, Synchronicity, is a company with intention and a mission to empower others to achieve their true potential through their trainings, retreats, and events that span around the globe. We were just sort of having a chat offline. You've got a mate in Sydney whose name is also Lockie, which is pretty cool. But mate, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to connect, and especially connecting with someone on the opposite side of the globe right now. Given the times, it's nice to meet new people without having to travel right now.
It's beautiful. I love the power of technology and Zoom and everything else that we use. You also host your own podcast as well, right? It's the
I do. I host a podcast which was a birth from the past, or from the last year, and kind of what happened, because I wanted to connect with people as well. And that's called the Synchronicity Show. But that has been a blessing in disguise in and of itself, of just kind of having high level conversations, getting to connect with like-minded people, and kind of has the same ethos around what I know about your podcast and why you got into having these conversations with people as well.
Yeah, it's awesome to see. Like, obviously, it was born out of COVID for you, the Synchronicity show, and obviously, as we were saying before, you ran retreats, and that was a big portion of your business. And then COVID came, and all the lockdown rules and laws and travel wasn't able to happen. But you managed to think on your feet very quickly. Why? Like, how did you get yourself into a position to do that? Because I know, I don't just want to focus on COVID, but let's just say when obstacles show up for people, we find it very hard to think on our feet. But for you to sort of turn it around and take a significant loss in income, but then to bring it back out the other side and get to where you are now, how did you get in that position?
I think so. It's a really good question. And I think that it is dependent on other things and opportunities that have happened in your life. And for me, I know this is kind of overcoming darkness is a common theme for the show. And for me, that takes me back, and we can move forward into the retreats and things like that. But it takes me back to when I lost my mother to stage 4 pancreatic cancer when I was 17. And I was, in essence, forced to grow up really quickly because I didn't have an option to, or an option not to. And what had happened was, and reflecting on this now, how I saw it kind of retroactively, at the time I was in a very dark place because of it. But what had happened is she got diagnosed after running a triathlon, and they gave her 3 months to live. And she thought she had hurt her back in the triathlon. And she went and got an MRI, and they said she had 3 months to live. And I was 16. I was a junior in high school, here in the States. And this was right after Christmas, 2009. And she sat us down on the couch. I remember this was like right before New Year's. And she said that she's going to spend one more Christmas with us. And I was like, how the hell is this going to happen, kind of thing? Because they gave her 3 months. So you would project February is when like the end would be. And she goes, no, I'm going to spend one more Christmas with you guys. Long story short, she passed away December 26, 2010. So literally 10 a.m. the day after Christmas. So she had that kind of achieved her last parting wish or her last goal. And looking back on it now and the work I've done in yoga and with myself and with everything around kind of the self-help work and stuff like that, it's very, very clear to me that your mind is more powerful than we have any comprehension and we could even possibly know. And that was very evident. So because of what she had done and what she had accomplished. So after that happened, I went off and I played hockey kind of semi-professionally. If you're familiar with junior hockey, I played hockey on the East Coast out here, or in the States, I should say. From there, it led me to an acting career, and then an acting career led me to yoga. And that's kind of how everything came together. But in all of those, there are ups and downs. And having to overcome such a huge obstacle at a very young age forced me to learn how to pivot. In everything that I did in life, I was like, okay, this is bad. How can I reframe this into a positive and make it good? Because yes, my mom passing away is the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life. But it's also one of the best things because it's prepared me and turned me into the person I am today because I've reframed it and put it into a positive light. I mean, because keeping it in that negative mind space is benefiting no one. And you living in that negative is only pulling you back down. So it's been a constant kind of ebb and flow between positive and negative, the different kind of polarities and sides of things. So I think, and to answer your question, to come into the retreat space, I think I was really set up at a very young age because of this to learn how to overcome adversity very quickly and to be forced into a world where I'm surrounded by adversity. And I mean, my mother is the tip of the iceberg. We can dive into some more of the other stories if we want, but everything that's come up has, like, you can't then sulk and let that be a negative. And the longer you live in that space, it's only pulling you down and the people around you. So I learned very early on that I need to then pivot and take every single objection, complaint, death, whatever happens that comes and gets thrown my way. I need to be one step above it and take all the negative and reframe it and think of it, how can I now spin this into a positive? I know that's a very big picture and diving straight into it right there for you. But I think that, I mean, that's case in point. The people that I've met and through my podcast as well that have overcome the most adversity early on in their life have this uncanny ability later on to pivot and to find the silver lining no matter the circumstances, which is a really, really cool thing to see.
Couldn't agree more. You've just given me so many questions that I want to ask off the back of that, but I definitely agree with you there. The people who experience, tough moments or moments, everyone's going to experience suffering at some point in life, I believe. And I'm grateful to have experienced early, much like yourself. And I think that sets us up to learn to pivot, to think on our feet, but also gives us the resilience to grind it out when it's needed. And, at the time, it's not enjoyable, and it is easy to slip into that thought process that why me? Everyone else is getting, the golden run, the golden ticket. But then once you start to come out the other side, you're like, I'm so thankful for that because now I understand myself and what's important on a whole new level. But I just want to go back to, obviously losing your mum at such a young age. Like, what was that like for you? What went through your mind when you first found out, like the thoughts and emotions and everything like that? Because I my parents are still here, and I can't imagine what that must have been like for you, especially at such a young age.
When I remember her sitting us on the couch, and then I went out to a party that night and I told my friends, and that was it. Like, that was the whole entirety of the conversation. I didn't think anything further. But the thing that did, now reflecting back on it, is I turned to drinking as a way to cope with it. Even though I wasn't like consciously trying to suppress emotion, I was like, this doesn't feel good. I'm going to drink to feel better. And that was a common theme for maybe the next 6 to 8 years following her passing. But when she first passed away, I shut down. So I was playing hockey at the time. I quit my hockey team. I basically didn't show up for school. I didn't do anything. I drank and did drugs with my friends all day. And that was kind of my life. And the tipping point and a moment that will forever be kind of burned into my memory was I was in school one day, a couple months after my mom had passed away. And if you're familiar with ice hockey or with the NHL, Shane Doan was the captain of the Coyotes. And he was someone I looked up to growing up. And he had heard my story through a friend of a friend. And he called me in my 4th hour math class. I was like, who's this random number calling me? I'll be right back. Let me take this. So I leave the class and I answer the phone. And he's like, hi, Kevin, this is Shane Doan. And I was like, what the hell? And so I answered the phone and he goes, I understand what happened to you. And I'm really sorry that this happened, but you also made a commitment to your team, because I made a commitment to my hockey team. And he goes, I don't care what you do after the season's over, but you made a commitment and all you have in life is your word. And right now you have to decide what kind of man you want to be. Are you going to honor your word, finish out the season, and live up to your commitment that you made for your brothers on the team? Or are you going to retreat back and hide and let shitty parts of life affect you negatively? And that hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, fuck, I have to go back. I have to finish out the season. And the next 3 months of hockey were the best hockey I've ever played. That set me up to go try out for a junior team, which then I got basically selected or drafted for the junior league. Then I played the next 2 years in juniors, and that propelled me forward. Granted, there were pros and cons and all of that, but if it wasn't for that one conversation, and I can pinpoint that exact moment where I was like, okay, this is the kind of person I want to be. I don't want to be the person that it gets hard and then you can't find them. That's not who I want to be. I want to be the kind of person it gets hard. Okay, what happens? Kevin shows up. That's the kind of person I wanted to be. And that one phone call, I'm 17. That was the one kind of, I always talk about it like the one big domino or the one big question that solves all the other answers. It was like, you will show up. Now all the other questions don't need to be asked. It's like in business, you make the one decision that you're like, I'm going to do this. I think Tim Ferriss is the one who talks about that. He's like, I'm not going to read any books, so he doesn't have to answer every single person's little question throughout the year, which then takes up more time. I had that one big question where I was like, okay, I'm going to show up. That's it. That's the question. Now I've had that kind of non-negotiable with myself, and now moving forward, that's who I'm going to be.
That's so powerful. To get a phone call, I would imagine for us over in Australia, maybe it's like Jonathan Thurston in the rugby league, or someone calling you and calling you out on your own shit.
Essentially, it'd be the captain of the rugby team, of the professional rugby team, giving you a call while you're sitting in high school.
That's brilliant. But it's such and we definitely do link up on that page. For me, it's taking ownership. It's essentially the same as showing up, just different language. Because if I know that if I just take ownership or just show up, then all the other questions don't need to be asked. I'll deal with what's in front of me when I'm there, rather than, allowing the fear-based questions to come, or the what ifs, the whatnots, and it leads to overwhelm and inaction. But I think, keeping in the forefront of your mind, what kind of man do you want to be? I 100% resonate with, when times get tough, I want to be there. I want people to know that they can count on me. And this goes with your health and fitness, your business, your relationships, everything like that. So that's so impressive. And it's probably, I would say it's a huge factor as to why you've gone on to have the success that you've had today.
I'd say 100%. And I'd say it's also why I'm in the position I am today, because you don't get into, with anything, it doesn't have to be business, but you don't get into a position of authority, for a lack of a better word, from avoiding adversity. Adversity is like growth comes from the hard times. Growth comes only from the times that the cliche, like, what is it? Get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, it's so true though. The more you position yourself in a place that sucks or that hurts, the more you're going to grow from that. That's in every aspect of life. That's why weightlifting works. You push yourself to a certain level. You don't grow by doing the same thing. You don't grow by doing the same thing in business, or you hit a plateau. And in every single facet of life, it's the exact same thing. And it's like, that's the one common theme. Find discomfort, find what sucks, and you're going to become a better person on the other side.
100%. 100%. So for you moving forward, like, obviously, you lost your mum at a young age, then you essentially shut off. You went through the drug, the alcohol, and even just, I think something that I never really talk about on the podcast is people just walking away from commitment. I really love that you shared that, because people do it all the time and we don't think anything of it because we don't have the accountability. We don't have people pulling us up on it. So for you to then have that moment of realization, what then sort of triggered or followed next for you? Because, obviously, as you mentioned, you had 2 years in the juniors, then you got into acting. Like, for me, that's like two opposite polarities, like it's fascinating.
The connect between the two there was, I was good, but I wasn't great. So in hockey, I was good to play where I was, but I wasn't going past where I was playing. And the first year I played, I didn't drink, I didn't do anything. I was strictly like, okay, I want to play professional hockey. I'm going to do everything in my power to level up. That didn't happen after the first year. The second year, I was like, okay, cool. Well, I can party this year and have a little bit more fun. That was a bad decision, because it turned into 90% partying, 10% hockey, because of the lifestyle that you're living. And throughout that year, I befriended a couple people who were professional actors, because they were living that kind of lifestyle, the rich and famous, drugs, alcohol, partying, fun, girls, the whole nine. And that attracted me in like the headspace I was in. And I was like, fuck hockey, I'm going to go do this kind of thing. And I made this pivot. And there was like I said, a pro and a con from everything. The con was I was in a very dark place. I never allowed myself to grieve my mother's passing. So I was in a negative place mentally. The positive out of acting was it allowed me this kind of like cathartic moment that allowed me to release emotion that I had been repressing and holding back as if I was a character. So I was able to release this emotion that I wasn't allowing myself to feel. So it made me feel like I was freeing myself, but I still hadn't done the work to work through what had happened to me internally. So again, there's kind of that polarity between the two. It was good because it was helping me open up, but it was a negative because I was still surrounding myself with people who were more interested in these habits or these negative approaches to kind of suppressing things. It was like, cool, go act during the day, but then we're going to black out at night kind of thing. Yep. And that was this like every day kind of same thing. Go work, go drink, go work, go drink. And I see a lot of people, especially with coaching people now, in that space. That's like, go to your job, come home and drink. Go to your job, go out with the boys. It's this pattern that I needed an interrupt. And the interrupt came from me my second year at college, or for you guys, uni. And so my second year, I went to Bali. So I'm kind of over in your part of the world right now. So the second year, I went with my vocal production coach to Bali to an acting intensive. So we were staying in Ubud in like a compound, and they had yoga at the compound. And I had been introduced to yoga prior, but I had never, like, it was a warm up for performance. Like I was using a 5-minute, if you're familiar with yoga, like a sun A, sun B real quick before I went on stage. And that was all I knew about yoga. But when I got to this compound, something in me was like, do yoga every morning. Like, just do it every morning. And every morning at 6 a.m., I did yoga. And 2.5 weeks in, 3 weeks in, I was in Shavasana. I was laying on the ground, and I like allowed myself to take the first deep breath I had ever taken. Like I was like, now I realize I was like consciously holding on. I'm sorry for the background noise. I'm not sure if they're drilling outside or what that is. But I took a deep breath and I just started bawling. Like I just lost it. And I'm not sure if what was like up to that point, I must have just been holding on to like everything, like don't show emotion. That's bad. Hockey, sports tell you not to show emotion, to be the man, to do whatever this is. And I didn't allow myself to experience. And then 2 weeks, 3 weeks of yoga allowed me to experience my own breath and my own emotions. And I had this like, for like 30 minutes, I couldn't stop crying. Like it was bawling, like ugly cry, like what the hell is going on? I couldn't stop. And I sat up and I looked at my teacher that I was there with, and I saw my mom in her, and it just like everything opened up. And then when I was coming back from the States, I landed in Los Angeles, and I was like, all right, I need to find more people like that. 2 weeks later, I was enrolled in a yoga teacher training to find, not even to deepen my own practice, just to find more people who like understood me, you know, and understood where I was coming from. Because at the compound, the people that were there were also actors, but they were very much like established in their self-care routines. Yep. And I didn't know what the hell self-care was at this point. And it was like the response I got from them after being vulnerable was the best thing that could have happened for me, because it was this very like welcoming, it's okay, don't worry, we've all been there kind of. And I had never experienced that. Like, sure, you have like on a team, a sports team, sure, you have people that are there for you, but like you start crying, your coach is going to be like, fuck is wrong with you, man? Like, yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was like a really beautiful experience, because it showed me that there was this whole other side of the world and of life that I had never experienced before. And I needed to know more of what that was.
Curiosity. It's really, relevant for me what you were saying just about your yoga experience, and 2.5 weeks in, like for some for me that seems like a lifetime. Like I'm fairly inconsistent with yoga. I do it, but I haven't done it consistently. But meditation and breath work. But how you say 2.5 weeks in, it allowed you to finally take that first breath. And for me, I'm doing a lot of self-care, but I've never still had that moment like that, which I'm looking for, because, my granddad passed away 2 weeks ago, and at the funeral on Friday, I still couldn't cry. I still couldn't let myself cry. Everyone else was around me, and I'm just like, can't do it. Because we're around country blokes, and I'm like, can't do it. I wanted to, but couldn't. So for me, I've got a breath workshop in a month with all the guys in our community, where I'm hoping for that experience where I can finally just have that emotion, whether that is what is coming for me, but that's what I feel I need. So when you're saying that, I'm like, righto, maybe I need to step into yoga a bit more to try and find that, because there's a whole other side that I know is available to me, but I haven't experienced yet. And I feel I want to.
Yeah. I say that that's my experience, but I mean, exactly that. It was my experience in that moment. I didn't know any different, or I didn't know what was coming. That was just like raw and authentic and what happened. So, I mean, sure, that could happen for you, or sure, that could be the experience you have, but I wouldn't say actively search out a moment where you're just going to like lose your shit and cry kind of thing,
Yeah.
Like, but for every single person, it's different. And all you can do is like be in the work and be in the like the biggest thing you can do is ask yourself why. Like, go into a situation. Okay, your grandfather passed away, which I'm very sorry to hear, but go into that situation and okay, I'm not crying. Okay, why? What's the first thing that comes to mind? And then ask yourself, why did that happen? Then dive a little deeper and like do that 6, 7, 8 times and peel the onion back until you find out what like the very internal piece is. And then start to recreate what that looks like and rebuild your reality from the inside out, rather than saying, oh, because of this and this and this and this and this, I'm this way. You're working external to internal. You got to flip it, figure out what that internal piece is and work your way from the inside out.
Great piece of advice. 100%. So, obviously when you got to that point of curiosity and you started delving in, everyone had their self-care routines and practices. What was, you signed up for your yoga training, and not necessarily to deepen your practice, as you said, but more so to find like-minded people. And I think for me, community is such a big, whether, call it community, environment, your tribe, whatever it is for you, to find those people who truly get you. Because I myself and a lot of people, you're surrounded by people every day, but sometimes you can still feel alone because you can't maybe necessarily have the conversations you want to have or express yourself in the way that you want to express yourself. So what I loved about what you said is you went in searching for that rather than just settling. What made you hungry enough to go do that? Because did you find you had to leave people behind in order to find a new, community?
There is probably 4 or 5 people in my life prior to me leaving for Bali that I still speak to today. It was this is an old life, this is a new life kind of transition for me. And not to say that's right or wrong in any way. It was just, I recognized the people I was hanging around with prior to that experience were not the people who were going to propel me forward on the trajectory that I now wanted to take my life. I then was like, okay, well, if I don't have any friends now, what the hell am I going to do? And how am I going to move this? I was in school at the time, which was awesome, because while I don't really agree with the university system in the way it's set up, it's like, it's the most expensive networking class you can ever go to, which is the benefit of going to school, is you have that networking and you get to meet people, which is awesome. What I was looking for was like a very specific kind of open-minded person. I don't know if I found specifically what I was looking for when I enrolled in teacher training, because I didn't know if I could put a label on that. And I don't know if I should have, and I don't think I did, but I was looking for a feeling within myself. So I wanted to continue what I felt when I was in Bali, but on US soil, because this was my home, or this is my home. And an interesting thing that happened, and it's you kind of like go in search of something and something else discovers you, so I went in search of this tribe, and because of my hockey background, I was like uniquely prepared to teach yoga because I knew anatomy and physiology. I knew how the body worked. I just didn't know the kind of the yogic philosophy part, or the sequence of postures. And I mean, anyone can pick up the sequence pretty quickly when they know what they're like learning. So I took a 6-month teacher training, and by month 2, I was teaching at the studio I was getting certified at. So I was like thrown into the deep end, which, if you know me, like I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm like, throw me into deep water. Let's see if I can swim kind of mentality. So I started teaching, and that just kind of snowballed. Like I had a class here, a class there, then I picked up a class, then I started teaching. And then the kind of 2 or 3 years after that, because I had graduated university, I was kind of in a limbo state. I started working a corporate job, but I was still kind of doing yoga on the side, but I didn't know where I wanted to be in life or which way I wanted to take this. I thought corporate was great because I was making really good money, but I wasn't fulfilled in what I was doing. So I was like between a rock and a hard place, between these two modalities of, do I want to become a corporate slave, or do I want to focus more on the yoga? Although I really enjoyed the business aspect. So I was like, how can I merge these two? And then kind of a happy accident happened. Or I'll say, because of the name of the company is Synchronicity, a synchronistic accident happened to help me then form that company.
I think that's brilliant, taking what you like and removing what you don't like to create what you is ultimately going to be the most fulfilling. That's, essentially how the Man That Can project started. It was a series of events that, there was certain things missing, certain things that I didn't like, but things that I also absolutely loved. And you combine them together and create your own masterpiece. Once again, if you show up and you take ownership and responsibility, especially in this day and age, we have the ability to literally run a business off your phone now. Like, it's pretty incredible. So there's no, in my experience, there's no reason why we can't be living a more fulfilled life if we are prepared to show up and put in that work. But let's go back to the educational system. It's a topic.
I had a thought that you might take it back there.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting concept, and I would imagine we're fairly similar in uni over here in the college system in the States. But for you and your experience with it, what do you see as flawed? Obviously, I 100% agree with you. I think of it, and I was only saying this to my fiance a few weeks ago. I was like, the only reason why I would ever pay for private college for our kids would be the network that you get. Like, you get access to some pretty phenomenal people. But in terms of learning, like, we've got it all on laptops now. Google's there, and unless it has a specific reason. So in your experience, what do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Is the flaws?
So I would say, if you want to get into a profession that requires some sort of formal education, 100%. You're not going to go to a doctor who doesn't have his doctorate. Like, you're not going to go get surgery with someone who hasn't been through the rigors of schooling. That's just like, that's dumb. Yeah. Anyone listening, don't do that. And like, same thing with a lawyer, or same thing. Like, if your job requires it, obviously that's the path you need to take. But the thing is that in any other aspect of my life, 99.999% of what I've learned is self-taught in everything, whether that's business, whether that's yoga, whether that's anything. And that's because I think, one, I have this innate curiosity where I'm always trying to better myself and learn more. And that works for me. My opinion on the education system is just that. It's my opinion. Like, a lot of people, it's great because it gives them structure. And I know a lot of people aren't able to create structure on their own. We kind of talked before we hopped on the air about this, that you need to be curious enough to implement. Like, it's one thing to learn, but a lot of people don't have the ability to then take that and implement. And you're not going to get anywhere unless you take action, unless you implement. School is good because it forces you to implement. But the thing is, if you know that you can implement on your own, or you know that you're a self-starter, other than the network, you're wasting your time, because you can do everything probably quicker than you could at university, because university is technically holding you back and forcing you through a pre-built template that says it must take you 4 years to graduate, kind of thing. You know, I went to school, I did my undergraduate in theater with a minor in psychology. That's a long story short. I only went to school because my dad gave me the ultimatum. He's like, if you ever need help in life, you got to get a degree. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go for theater. And so I went for theater, I got a minor in psychology. But I did my undergrad in 3 years. So it's a 4-year degree. I did it in 3 years, and I was about to do 2.5 years, but I wanted to party my final semester. So I pushed it out longer. Yeah. But if you look back, I didn't learn anything at school. There's not a piece of knowledge that I can say, oh, I recall learning this in this class. I know all the friends I made. I know all the experiences I had. I know all the plays I performed in. I know all the opportunities I got from it. But it was just that. It was an opportunity to have an experience and network. If you don't need it, I don't know. Like, it's a tough thing, because I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't have those experiences. But maybe go into it with the mindset that you're going to use it as a networking opportunity rather than an educational opportunity, you know, like have a different intention behind it. But I mean, with like pros and cons with it, it can go both ways. In my opinion, if it's not something that you need for your profession, it's not worth it. But then the network that you get from it is. So it's kind of, you gotta test the table.
It goes. You probably could tie it into how you, when you were saying peel back the onion. It's like, why, and why is that important, or why is this important to get to, work through the pros and cons and find out where it is. Because the way I look at it as well, when I went to uni on and off for multiple times, never finished anything. But I never had the intention to network either. So for me, it was just a complete waste of time and money, because I was not aware about the power of networking. So I think if people go into it with this is a great way to network, awesome. But I also think now, once again, we got these mobile phones. You can, how we connected, right? We can get in contact with nearly almost anyone in the world. Yeah. It's incredible. So would I want to pay tens of thousands of dollars for that? No, I'd rather just work on myself and find a way to fulfill what makes me happy.
Yeah. At the time when I went to school, I didn't go for the intention to learn or to network, but I went with kind of the ego-driven intention to be popular. And that led me to partying nonstop. I went to Arizona State in Arizona, which is, top 3 party schools in the United States. But in doing so, it was a blessing and a curse. Everything, blessing and a curse. It was awesome because I partied basically every night of the week, and it was a shit ton of fun. But I met so many people. Like, every single night, you're meeting 100 people, because there's 70,000 people that go to that school.
70,000
people. The campus that I was on when I went there with, I think, with 45,000 people on the campus that I went to. So, and then because I played hockey, and the drinking age in the States is 21, because I played hockey, I started my freshman year right when I was turning 21. So I was able to go out to the bars with all of my friends who had been in school the past 2 years, who were already in their junior and senior year. Yep. So I was I bypassed a couple steps and was able to just meet people every single night. Oh, this person, this person, this person. And after a while, that kind of you had this massive spider web of a network, which is awesome. But at the same time, I think my life kind of hinted on alcoholism at the point, because of the amounts of partying that we were doing.
100%. Very, very true. It's cool, the spider web analogy. So going back to, you found yourself doing the teacher training and all those self-care practices, and then obviously a heap of partying through that process. For yourself, the next phases of mindfulness, like what was that exploration like? Because obviously, yoga's, once again, I'm not the guru in yoga, but there's so many different self-care practices out there. It can almost be overwhelming from time to time. But, going back to what you said, it's like, what's the intention for why you're doing something?
Yeah, the big turning point for me was I was working for a Fortune 500 hospitality company at the time in food and beverage. So I was running their bar program, and that kind of just perpetuated the amount of drinking that I was doing, because it's like, go to work at a bar, go out with your colleagues, then wake up in the morning. And then now I'm teaching yoga in the mornings. And it was this like, I'm living two separate lives kind of thing.
100%.
So what I wanted to do is I wanted to transition and essentially take over. I helped open a new property at the time, and I wanted to leave the food and beverage side, and I wanted to focus on building out a yoga and fitness amenity for guests, and then running it as a studio on their resort property. And that was awesome until I started making more money doing that than I was. And then they wanted a commission of what I was making, essentially. They're like, okay, cool, you were going to get 50% now. And I was like, what? I don't do this and get successful, and then you say you want a piece of what I made when you didn't believe in me from the beginning, kind of thing. So I said, no, but I'm going to do this full time now, and I'm happy to keep it on property for you guys. And they said, no, we're going to just kind of push you back into the bar, because I was generating a lot of revenue for them. So I was like, okay, cool. Here's my 2 weeks. I'm quitting, and I want to dive into the kind of fitness side, the yoga side, the health and wellness side. Up until that point, that's where Synchronicity came from, was I wanted a way to differentiate my income from food and beverage and from health and wellness. So I could say I made X from this and X from this kind of thing. And so when I gave my 2 weeks, I dove straight into kind of running my own business, which was originally kind of private lessons, group coaching, teaching classes at a local studio kind of thing. And that was the first time I fully lived that lifestyle, like the health and wellness. I removed unconsciously a lot of these negative things that were still in my life unconsciously. And I wasn't like, okay, today is the first day of this. And I noticed the mental and physical shift in myself just from making a couple lifestyle and mindset shifts. And the people I had surrounded myself up to that point with, but not full time. I still had the devil on my shoulder on one side and Christ on the other. And I was between these two separate lives. But when that happened and I made the shift to focus on, I don't want to call it the yogic journey, but more prioritizing myself and self-care over being liked by other people and partying with other people, was a huge transition for me to notice a lot of the things I was doing up to that point in life were conditioned. They were, you're supposed to like this thing, so you're going to like it. Or society tells you need to live a certain way, so you're going to live a certain way. And then when I made the shift, I had the kind of space to sit with myself and say, hey, I don't really like this, but why am I doing it? And then like I said, back to the why, I started to ask myself all these questions. And then I really started to create the life that I wanted based on my own thoughts and based on my own perception of what I wanted my life to be like, without having all of these other elements that influence where I was told I was supposed to go.
Love where you said creating the space to sit with yourself so you can start recognizing the thoughts and getting away from the societal, I guess, preconceived ideas of how we should be living. Because if it were to be a one-size-fits-all approach, everyone would be happy, healthy, wealthy, all of the above. But if we look at the statistics and even talk to your mates or work colleagues, there's a lot of people who aren't, and you can see a lot of people aren't unhealthy. So therefore, we need to start questioning and challenging what is the norm for us as individuals. And I believe it's very hard to do if we aren't making that time to sit with ourselves, and if we aren't, whether it's meditation or reading or having conversations like we're having here now, to get challenged, to be able to just sit. But it's confronting for a lot of people. I found it very confronting. I think even when I was younger, that's probably, I had this escapism mentality where I'd be looking for drinking or video games or something to just distract me from just being still. But through being still, I've managed to understand who I am as an individual and what I want my life to look like. And, once we show up for that, we start creating it, and it's like a rocket ship taking off.
Well, it brings me back to what we were saying about like getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And everything that you said is avoiding stillness is just avoiding discomfort, because it's sitting in a room by yourself, meditating in quiet and doing nothing sucks. Like it does. Like, sure, you can learn to like the process, and I enjoy meditation now, but like, if you really look at it, like, you're fighting your body, you're fighting your mind. And it's interesting how people look at it. And I relate meditation a lot to business, because, and we can kind of take this as a spin-off right here, but the way that people approach meditation is they think that meditation is like a shutting off of your mind, or like a quieting of the mind, when in actuality, that's the result that you get. The action is a single point of focus. So no matter what modality or type of meditation you practice, it's a single point of focus. It's letting all these other thoughts that come up go and pulling yourself back to the present moment where you're at right now. Business is very similar. A lot of people, especially now that everyone has their own business online and all these things, they think that business is to make money, but that's not business. Business, that's a result of an action. The action is providing value to other people. Business is an exchange of currency, which is an exchange of energy. If you think of it that way, the more impact and the more transformation I can offer to a client, to a customer, the more money you'll make on the back end. And I think people have confused a lot of the approach. Like, I like that meditation is becoming more mainstream, but I think it's starting to slightly, the reasoning behind why you're doing it is starting to shift into a more negative outlook. Same with business. People are saying, oh, all these large companies are going down a negative path, or I'm starting this because I need to make money, kind of thing. But that should never be. That's like getting into something saying, I want to be here, but forgetting the journey in between. You're never going to get there, because you're going to quit along the journey because you don't enjoy what you're actually doing. It takes us back to that understanding why you're doing something. If you know why you enjoy what you're doing, you're going to be able to prolong it and continue that cycle. If you know that you want to be a better person, then the day-to-day doesn't suck as much, because you're able to dive into what it is without just saying, oh, I want to be a millionaire. Well, why? What is the reason behind that kind of thing? Like, what is the reason you want to do yoga? What is the reason you want to meditate? What is the reason you want to work out? Figure out that, like, dive deep into that. Like, why do you want to work out? Oh, well, I work out because I think I'm small. Well, you're 225 pounds. You're not small. Yeah, but when I was growing up, my dad told me that I was skinny, even though I wasn't. And now I have this invalid mental picture of who I am that I live with. That's the conversations that I like, because that's the kind of peeling back the layers, figuring out why you react a certain way. And then once you know why, you can deconstruct that to figure out if what you're doing is actually what you want to do, or if you want to like take your life and just completely upend it and pivot it into a way that actually makes sense for what you want to do.
100%. And going through that experience for yourself and being in a position where you know who you are, or I guess you're going to continue growing, but you have an idea of who you are and what you want to create for yourself. What does that look like for you over the next, whether it's 2 to 5 years? Do you have an idea of where you're going with yourself individually, and obviously Synchronicity and the podcast as well?
Individually, I would say just showing up as the best version of myself every single day. I really like to, like, I can create this picture of myself of where I want to be in 5 years. And I'm always striving to be that person, but I'll never become that person. So it's like, I'm always like, I get one step better and so does he. And you're always like equal space apart, but you always have a trajectory you want to go towards. So in terms of personal goals, they're very experiential, and they're travel more, they're meet people, they're experience new things, and they're like actually live a fulfilling life. In terms of the business, prior to COVID starting, I wanted to open a studio to basically give a home to all the people who I know that are in a certain place that don't have a place to be themselves. And to, like, this conversation that we had, make that the norm. Like, why can't that be the societal norm? Like, why can't you show up and say, hey, I'm not feeling great today, and here's why, boom, boom, boom. But instead you go, oh yeah, I'm good. No, you're not. Like that's how we're going to grow, is to have these like uncomfortable conversations. But so I want to create a space as well as grow the retreats and the consulting division. But the big thing is to create a space for other people to be themselves, to grow into the people they want to become, and allow themselves to, like, actually experience what it means to live a fulfilling life. And I think I'm uniquely positioned in a place with hospitality, with business, and with yoga and fitness to create that for someone. So I feel like that's the next big leap for me, is to create a space that people can call home.
So exciting. And it's value based. It's not about money. Like, obviously it's a byproduct of doing that and doing that really well. But I love how what it comes down to is serving more people, and obviously people that relate to, or you can relate to, you've been there. And I think that's such an important part in this, as you know, especially the self-help space grows and everything like that. It's, question why you're really here. Is it obviously, the coaching industry is the fastest growing industry in the world currently. Are you doing it because of what you see people, or how you see people living, because of the money, the flexible lifestyles, or are you doing it because you genuinely come from a place where it's like, well, I can help these people who were like I was, and I want to get them to here, and then that'll help them take their quality of life and create that positive ripple effect. I think that's an important thing to be focused on.
Yeah, if you get into anything, doesn't even have to be coaching, but if take coaching as an example, if you get into it with the sole purpose to make money, you're not going to have happy clients, because you're not going to go above and beyond to deliver for them. And they're not going to become raving fans, and the ripple effect kind of will continue, which then you're not going to have a business for very long. And that's, like I said, people confuse business with income rather than impact. But when you approach things from that different point of view, everything changes. Now it doesn't matter where we get to. It matters that I enjoy the process of it. And if you enjoy the process of it, then every single day you're going to want to show up. You're going to live a fulfilled life, because every single day, sure, we're having hard conversations. We're approaching things that are difficult. All business is overcoming objections and problems. The faster you overcome them, the faster you're going to grow. But if you enjoy that and you surround yourself with people that you enjoy growing with, that's the best life I think you could ever explain to anyone,
100%. Couldn't agree more. So I've got one last question for you, and it's one that I ask everyone. I never prep people for it, because I love just the real, raw, honest answer, because I think if we all had time to prep, most people may say similar things. But as we've discussed on this, everyone's unique, and our way of seeing the world, experiencing the world is equally valid. What's your definition of being a man?
Showing up vulnerably.
I love it. Love it. Well,
I feel like I could unpack that further, but that's the first thing that came to mind. Yeah. And I've never been asked that question before. So now I'm going to probably think about that for the next couple of days.
Well, yeah, I just love getting people's off the cuff response, because, we're 20,000 listeners and growing. And I think it's important for those people that are listening to understand that, hey, I don't have to conform to the societal stereotype of what a man is, because unfortunately it's not working, or for everyone. So if we can get people to resonate with other people and understand that it's normal, to have different ways of thinking and understanding for that, then it's going to help everyone forward.
I think maybe one final point I want to add on that, which is something that the whole world can take note on right now. And it's something that I read from Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights.
How good is that book?
I will reread that every year for the rest of my life. McConaughey, if you're listening, I want to have a conversation too. Yeah, let's do a three-way podcast call. That'd be fantastic. But a very interesting thing that he said that made me completely rethink a lot of debates and the way that I approach arguments was when he was in, I want to say Saudi Arabia, and he was talking to those two men who were having an argument based on how the girl was dressed. And they go, no, she's Muslim. She's not supposed to dress that way. And he said, it's her choice. She's supposed to show up. She's supposed to make the choice. And then McConaughey said, no, I agree with this guy. And they both stopped and they said, it doesn't matter who's right or wrong. All that matters is that we're understood. And that was like a mic drop moment for me, because it was every argument we have or every debate we have. And this is the problem, is if I'm right, you're wrong. No, if I'm right and you think you're wrong, then there's a divide. But if I think this way and you think this way, and because of that, I can now say, help me understand why you think this way. Now we're all going to grow and we're all going to be happier. If you don't do that, it's politics. It's Republican versus Democrat. It's right versus left. It's 1 versus 2. It's binary. But life is not binary. There's a lot of gray area in between. And when you start to understand that the person next to you is a person and they are equal to you, it doesn't matter how you, like, everything that we're trying to label ourselves now. And there's 150 genders and people want to be all like, they're trying to find a path, but it's a path out of labeling. And I understand that, like, people need to feel heard and feel understood, which then, if you take all of this back, it starts at the beginning. If we could say that I'm not right, you're not wrong, but I understand your point of view. Maybe I don't agree, but I accept who you are because of that. Okay, let's go grab a bite. Let's go eat, whatever kind of thing. The whole world would be so different. Like, if we could sit down and, like, me and you have an hour-long conversation. We don't have to agree on everything. If anything, we probably shouldn't agree on everything, because then life would be boring and we wouldn't be able to have these deeper, thought-provoking conversations. I know that's a tangent, which we could probably continue on for a while, but that's an important point that I think is something that a lot of people can take note on. It's, you don't have to be right. You don't have to be wrong. The other person doesn't have to be right or wrong. Just listen and try and understand where they're coming from. And if you don't agree with them, figure out why they think that way. It's hard to do because we've been conditioned to think that you have to be right. And if you're not right, they're attacking you as a person. But that's not really how things work. And that's not how life works. And the sooner we can kind of wake up and recognize that, the sooner we're all going to be on a much, much more positive trajectory.
Well said. I loved it. But I think it's in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where it's seek to understand before being understood. And that stood out for me when I read the book 6 years ago. And I've always focused on that, because I used to love an argument and I would shut people down. Whereas now it's made me more inquisitive and ask better questions to really understand. And you don't have to agree. But if you can understand, like, I imagine if you'd walked a mile in someone's shoes, you'd probably have the same beliefs and opinions as they did. So if we can understand that, we can start to let go of you're right, I'm wrong, as you said. So Kevin, where can everyone find you? So for everyone who's driving and listening to this, I'll attach it in the show notes so you can click the links later.
So our company website is synchronicity.yoga. So if that links back to everything. And then our podcast, the Synchronicity Show, is on all major podcast platforms as well, which now that we're talking, I got to get you on there at some point too. So we will return the favor for you, my friend. Awesome.
Well, Kevin, I really appreciate it. I've taken away so much from that, and I'm going to go and ask myself why a few more times on why I couldn't at the funeral and get clear on that. But I look forward to staying in touch. And continuing to follow the work that you do, and appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure entirely.
If you loved today's episode, make sure you hit subscribe or follow, leave a review, and share it on your socials. By doing this, it allows us to get the ratings we need to get incredible guests like the episode we had today, to help you guys get tools, resources, and education to be the best version of yourself. Thank you for listening to the Man That Can Project podcast. My name is Lachlan Stuart, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. If you did, please take a moment to rate and review the Man That Can Project on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our newest episodes. We'll see you again next time.